The attack on the immigration post has left 2 officers critically wounded and are currently
3 officers wounded. CDS Dramas says prevalence of COVID-19 within the armed forces is relatively low. Former magistrate Ture says security apparatus helped to cement Jammeh's grip on power. This and more coming on Gambia 24. Good evening, you're watching Gambia 24 News with me, Mariama Cham, and thanks for joining us. Barely 3 days after the inauguration of Gunjur Immigration Post, about 10 unidentified armed men attacked the said post in the early hours of Friday morning. According to the officers, the attackers were armed with machetes, knives, and guns, thereby outnumbering 3 officers on duty. The incident left 2 of the officers with serious injuries. Binta Jallo has the rest of that.
The post was inaugurated on Wednesday, and early Friday morning, the post was attacked by 10 unidentified armed men. The attack on the immigration post has left 2 officers critically wounded and are currently hospitalized at the Gunjur Health Center. The officer in charge of the Gunjur Hospital, Hadi Fadera, explained the condition in which the officers arrived at the center.
They were severely bled. You can see blood stains on their uniforms. And for Dabo, who sustained a deep laceration on the finger, and on the elbow here, he sustained bruises and 2 lacerations on the skull. For Suleiman too, he has bruises at his back and 2 lacerations on his head. So they were bleeding, so we make sure that we arrest that bleeding and mounted fluid for them, take their vitals. Fortunately, they are in good shape and all the vital signs read normal.
Mamanding S. Diba, Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Immigration Department, said the assailants were armed with single-barrel rifles, cutlasses, and sticks, and house-breaking materials.
During the assault on our officers, 3 people sustained injuries, including a fire and rescue officer who came to reinforce our officers on the attack. They sustained injuries of various degrees on different parts of their bodies, including head, hand, neck, etc.
Chief Superintendent Diba said the attackers might be foreign nationals.
According to a witness and a victim, the attackers were heard speaking Susu language and some bit of Wolof that was not a fluent one. The wounded were later rushed to Gunjur Health Facility, where they received some urgent medical attention before referral to Brikama District Hospital for more detailed medical attention to their injuries.
Preliminary reports appeared to show that the men were surrounded by the attackers. One of them was able to fight his way out to call for help, but by the time help arrived, the attackers took to their heels and efforts to apprehend them was unsuccessful, and they managed to escape running in the direction of Kajabang village. A suspect is currently helping the police in their investigations. The said incident is said to be the first in the history of Gambian Immigration Department. For iAfrica News, Binta Jallo.
After a public outcry and condemnation on social media and others, Oboy and Gambian Child's Jutinaya album launch will finally go ahead as planned. The move came after the police revoked the permit citing the coronavirus restriction measures. Fatoumata Kassim reports.
After several months of preparation for album launch, Oboy says he received a letter from the Inspector General's office acknowledging receiving the missive request for permit, but the office rejected it. Oboy said this made him to inform the people about the situation, and this propelled Gambians to take to social media to show solidarity to him. He said this must have changed the mind of the police.
Yeah, ndawang step ta Gambia le step ta Gambia no le step ta.
I didn't take a step, but Gambians did. All I did was to tell the people that my permit was revoked due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Gambians protested against the police decision. Others made calls, we talked and came to an agreement. When I was told about it, I felt like I should stop doing music and just become a criminal. But right now, I feel like doing more because Gambians love what I do, and that is the reason they all protest against the news for the show to happen.
Not long ago, the artist released a song called Ajindi, where he said if the head of state and people in authority are not doing what is expected of them, they should step down. For Oh Boy, the Ajindi song, which means bring it down in English, must have been the catalyst behind the police denying him the permit initially.
Because of song yung kabiri nga bondi, daw da movie mbuka moino mu wa fokanye ko. Oh, ita launching tekela.
When I released the Ajindi song, everyone was telling me that your album launch will not hold. When I asked why, they said it is because of the song. They said the government will take it personal. So that being the case, your show will not hold. When I asked why my permit was revoked, they said it is because of the COVID-19 restriction. But they gave me the permit before, even though there was corona. So that's the reason why I concluded that it's because of the song and not COVID-19.
In the same song, he condemned people that receive Western education and branded them as liars, saying they are the people that are involved in fraud, corruption, and manipulation. He said they should use their knowledge for good and not to deceive the semi-literates and the less privileged. He said their knowledge should be used to build the nation and not otherwise. For iAfrica News, I am Fatmata Kasim.
Now, Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces Lieutenant General Yakuba A. Drame says the prevalence of COVID-19 cases is relatively low within the Gambia Armed Forces. Drame made remarks on Friday during the launching of the Armed Forces COVID-19 vaccination campaign at the Defense Headquarters in Banjul. More of that in this report.
Various sectors, both private and public, were hard hit by the deadly pandemic, with many others succumbing to the virus. The media fraternity was among the hotspots of confirmed COVID-19 cases when the pandemic initially hit the country. However, this seems to be different within the Gambia Armed Forces, as its chief servant, Lieutenant General Yakuba A. Drame, says the reverse was the case within the armed forces. CDS Drame adds that the low confirmed cases were possible due to swift responses of the military against the pandemic.
I gave instruction to my director of medical services. And the instruction was a very clear-cut instruction. And I stand to say, I feel very proud. Without hesitation, we took the lead, even before the process was undertaken at the national level. Today, I'm happy to report the prevalence within the armed forces was relatively insignificant. Let me repeat that again. The prevalence within the Gambia Armed Forces was relatively insignificant. It was more of an exception. Only one or two individuals were contracted the virus. But we are thankful to Allah. No life was lost in the process.
As the armed forces launches its COVID-19 vaccine, CDS Drame took the first jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine by describing the move as a sign of leadership and transparency.
I'm proud to lead the launch of the COVID-19 vaccine within the Gambia Armed Forces. And I take this again. I'm proud to lead the launch of the COVID-19 vaccination within the Gambia Armed Forces as a mark of leadership, as a mark of leadership, as a mark of responsibility, and as a mark of transparency.
This is because COVID-19 is very, very real. It is therefore proper and fitting for members of the Gambia Armed Forces, including my very self, to take the appropriate decision to be vaccinated this morning.
Meanwhile, Major General Mohamed Ocham, Deputy Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, explains how he felt after taking the vaccine.
You hardly notice any pain in terms of the injection, and the assurance that you have now taken the first step in protecting yourself against this very very highly contagious disease is reassuring. I want to also encourage the soldiers, all the ranks and files of the Gambia Armed Forces, to take the shot and ignore all those negative propaganda and publicity against the dose or the medication or the vaccine.
The Health Directorate and other partners deemed it fitting to vaccinate the security services of the country, adding that other sectors, including the teachers, are next in line for the vaccination. Health personnel advised that being vaccinated does not prevent one from contracting the virus in the future, but only following the COVID-19 guidelines by social distancing, wearing of face masks and hand washing can prevent one from the deadly pandemic. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
Now, the Minister of Defense, Seh Omar Faye, made a comment during his interview with the Fatwa Network, saying that victims should stop crying over spilled milk and move on. The body for the victims of Jammeh's regime says such a comment coming from a cabinet minister is provocative to victims and a threat to the ongoing TRRC. Amindao has the rest of that.
The comment of the Minister of Defense, Seh Omar Faye, on victims of human rights violations of the former regime of Yahya Jammeh caused concern and distress to the Victim Center. The center said it has condemned the said comments in its strongest term. Serif Mohamed Kijera, chairperson of the Victim Center Board of Directors, said such comments are perceived as threat and may affect the TRRC recommendation by the government.
Let us shock it up. Let us understand that we made mistakes. Let us stop crying over spilled milk. Let us look for a way out. Let us move on. This demeaning and highly insensitive statement is coming at a time when the TRRC is at the tail end of its mandate and subsequent submission of its final reports and recommendations to the government of the Gambia. This statement coming from a cabinet minister is perceived as a threat that may affect the implementation of TRRC recommendations by the government as well as the healing process for victims.
The chairman of Tangu, John Charles Njai, said leaders should never again allow violations of human rights.
Leadership calls for responsibility. We cannot afford to have undergone 22 years of being misled, of being being violated, our rights being violated, our dignity being eroded, and to have 4 years of people that think they can take Gambians for granted. When we say never again, we are not saying never again only to torture, but we are saying never again to the arrogance of people that we have appointed to lead us. Never again to their missteps, never again to their indifference and their lethargy, and their outright disregard for the pain that we as Gambians have gone through.
Mr. Njai also noted that public servants must not take Gambians for granted.
I think our public servants must also know that they are not more Gambian than us. They have just been accorded a privilege for a time. They must take cognizance of that for a time. Because whatever position they hold now, one day and very soon, they will have to relinquish that position for somebody else. So let them act with humility. They must not take Gambians for granted. I think enough is enough. We have had enough arrogance from our public service. We have had enough arrogance from the people that are supposed to be examples for the younger ones.
The Victim Center responded categorically that it has never worked with the Ministry of Defense in matters relating to their welfare. However, the center is concerned and worried about recent rumors going round suggesting the homecoming of the former president. The victims' community fear that his coming back may have serious ramifications on the ongoing TRRC and other transitional justice processes. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
That report by Amindao on the Victim Center will take us to a quick break, and we'll be right back with the rest of the news. Stay with us.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back, and still on Gambia 24 News. Africtivist, an organization for West African activists, has on Thursday certified 14 participants after completing a 4-day training program on activism. According to organizers, the training was part of capacity building workshops for young people living in West Africa who are interested in issues of civic engagement, civic leadership, and social transformation. Amanda has the rest of that.
The Africtivist group is embarking on 3 civic engagement workshops for young people aged 18 to 35 in 3 different countries, including Gambia and then to other West African countries. Aisa Dabo, a member of the Africtivist group, said the goal of the training is to help equip young people who have passion for activism.
Training actually was, it's part of a West Africa tour. It's called the Africtivist Civic Engagement Tour. We started the pilot in Senegal, and we did it in Dakar twice, in Ziguinchor, in Fatick, and in Saint-Louis. And the goal was to equip actually young people with tools that can help them build communities, sustain their communities, and be able to write grants, know how to do advocacy and online advocacy. Share with them what leadership means, what is being a servant leadership, what is civic engagement, what is civic leadership. We thought that the best way to go about things and the best way to contribute to building the capacity of the next generation is by giving them tools at the grassroots.
The president of the Gambia Bar Association, Saliu Tal, said, activism is beyond posting hashtags on social media and wanting to be popular.
So I think this is a great opportunity for you, us Gambians and young people. And activism is not about just going on Facebook, Twitter, and posting hashtags and trying to be famous. It's about really ensuring that your work has impact. And the real work is never in the limelight. People will never know about it. You should be happy that you do the work and you have impact, even if nobody claps for you. Because as an activist, you're not doing it because you want recognition. You're not doing it because you want reward. You're doing it because you believe in it. And that's what the real activist is.
The executive director of the Center for Research and Policy Development, Said Matijau, pointed out the issue of activism as one of the things the country lacks.
I want to thank Africtivists and IRI and also the center for contributing to this important event, because one of the things that we feel is really lacking in this country is activists, is people that engage in civic engagement, having the needed tools. Sometimes we understand some of these issues, but largely or generally, most of us do not know or how to how to apply some of these tools, or even the opportunities that are available for us to do that. So I'm really happy that you have gone under this 4-day training, and I hope that you have learned a lot.
The 14 participants were certified at the end for successfully completing the Africtivist Civil Engagement Tour in the Gambia. Participants are expected to become trainers to roll out the program in the Gambia with the support of Africtivist and its various partners and collaborators in West Africa. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
Now to matters of the TRRC. The Truth Commission continues to hear testimonies from the matters of the judiciary on the legal and constitutional violations during former President Jammeh's regime, which affected the work of legal practitioners in the country. The latest to appear before the commission is Bori S. Ture, a former magistrate and senior legal practitioner. Lawyer Ture says the country's security apparatus, including the police, were part of those who helped to cement Jammeh's grip on power, leading to unlawful arrests, detentions, and charges. Naisise has the rest of that.
The 1997 Constitution, under Section 120, subsection 4, stated that judges and other judicial officials shall not be subjected to any control or direction from person or authority. However, during Jammeh's regime, these laws under the Constitution were suspended as the President has absolute control over the judiciary and the entire security apparatus at a time. Appearing before the Third Commission, the former magistrate Bori S. Ture said the police officers under the directive of the late IGP FRI Jammeh gave so much power to the ex-president, leading to human rights violations in the Gambia.
If you ask about institutions and individuals and organizations that capacitize Jammeh, I'll talk about the police first. They had an Inspector General of Police at the time. Inspector General. The late FRI Jammeh. I'm sorry to say, but he was a most irresponsible person. FRI would instruct the police to charge, arrest and detain, detain and charge any person who has been reported to him to be an opposition sympathizer.
The witness said most of the best scores of the Gambia police force were sacked during the tenure of the IGP FRI Jammeh.
The large number of police officers who were trained
police kendol police jama men ya lon ko yi karandi yi londi la do ko la
able to continue the good work of the police following any change of government. We are all dismissed from the service.
Andu keta moluti men keta do ko la luti wakilta isaita puruka tenten do ko la bari wo tembo le mo kendolu be ye be by police.
Do you know on what grounds they were dismissed?
Yala na ye bay mundali le kan.
You will be surprised that even when files are handed over to the police to investigate,
hani file ni di police la pour ka foy align kukari kisi
when they investigate and stumble on evidence,
ni kisi ro ke tata sele ku ka memu sede kuoti,
they can be sacked for writing the right report about what transpired.
Magistrate Ture added that even when someone wants to engage the CDI to investigate any matter at that time, many of the officers will not want to get involved due to fear of being dismissed. According to several members of the judiciary who appeared before the Third Commission, Jammeh suspended some of the laws in the 1997 Constitution and inserted laws to his liking. Some of the lawyers who refused to follow Jammeh's orders were either sacked or unlawfully arrested, detained without trial. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
And that TRC report by Daisy will bring us to the end of Gambia 24 newscast. I am your presenter, Mariama Cham. Thanks for watching and do have a great weekend ahead.
The Gambia may be the smallest country in Africa, but it will host the second largest gathering of world leaders in 2022. To successfully host the OIC summit and put the Gambia on the global stage, the government of the Gambia set up OIC Gambia to mobilize resources for the implementation